On the next installment of the NFL Divisional Fan Series, we bring you the AFC West. That is the Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs, and Raiders. And you know when you have a division that has a defending Super Bowl champion in it, not only are they hungry to get back and repeat, but the other three teams in their division are really hungry to go get at them and prevent them from repeating. So we bring you 4 new fans and 4 new perspectives, and I hope you really enjoy what you hear. Enjoy, everybody. Kicking off the AFC West for the Denver Broncos is my man over here, Nick Vandermolen. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, Alex, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, Nick, you are not a sports aficionado. You're not doing like sports writing, radio, TV, anything like that, right? As far as I know.
I wish. I am just a diehard Bronco fan.
Awesome. If you don't mind me asking, what's your 9-to-5 profession?
So currently, man, I have a main profession and a whole bunch of freelancing side projects, anywhere from marketing to serving at a fondue restaurant. But my 9-to-5 is working for a window replacement company out of Denver. It's a bit of a startup. It's called 5 Seasons Windows, and I handle all things marketing and operations.
That's awesome. So you're kind of, you would describe yourself more as like the average fan, like a diehard Broncos fan, but the average fan per se, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely live and die by the Broncos, but once the games are over, once the season's over, life moves on.
Now, short aside with Nick, I coached Marist College, if anybody listens, track and field for a few years, and Nick kind of joined the team midway. And the one thing I remember about Nick is, number 1, smiled the whole damn time. And number 2, worked harder than anyone I've ever seen work for a guy that really didn't compete. Did you compete in a race, Nick?
I ran 5 races senior year. I want to say 4 or 5 races senior year. And it was literally fantastic. Having that opportunity to kind of, run with the Marist track team was so much fun. Arguably liked it more than swimming. But yeah, just kind of diving into that new realm of athletics, which eventually led me out west to Colorado, where I currently am. Was just so much fun, and the team, is awesome, as you well know. Couldn't have had a better time, and working hard and having fun while doing it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. One of my greatest memories, just seeing you after like grueling workouts, still smiling. I'm like, what the hell? What's going through his head? But anyway, we're going to jump right in. First things first, when did you become a Broncos fan? What's your earliest memory of being a Broncos fan?
Man, I honestly wish that it was earlier. So basically, fun fact about me, I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Wow. My second person I know that was born in Hawaii.
No way. Yeah, it's a fun fact, but I can't say that I lived there for too long because it was only 1 year. So when I was 1, my family and I moved to Louisville, Colorado, which is just outside Boulder.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point on, I mean, my mom still tells me to this day that we lived down the road from a Bronco at the time, but I wasn't too, into football or whatever until I actually moved to New Jersey, which was where a lot, the majority of my upbringing was. So moved to the East Coast when I was going into first grade.
Yep.
And then from, maybe 2000, maybe I was about 10, probably like the 2003 season, was starting to pick up on, football, how it all worked. And then, had my John Elway jersey growing up as a kid, but didn't really, respect the name. It was just more for, fun, but still have that jersey actually.
Was it the baby blues or the navy blues?
I was the Navy Blues. Yep, the Super Bowl 33 jerseys. But yeah, so was living in New Jersey. Always respected the East Coast teams, but then found my loyalty with the Broncos, and really fell in love with the blue and orange. And so from that point on, I was more of just a Bronco fan in the midst of Giants, Jets, and Eagles country.
Hey, listen, so early 2000s, that's as good a time as any. So you've had your, ups and downs with the Broncos.
Yes.
We're going to talk about this year's free agency. The draft just happened, but we're going to kind of stick to free agency right now. We'll talk about the draft in the next segment.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to run down the losses, additions. I'll talk about some of the guys, and you'll tell me your impression of free agency.
Sure.
So when I look at the losses, you had a few key losses. On offense, really the only big one is Connor McGovern going to the Jets. Mm-hmm. On defense, Derek Wolfe, Chris Harris, and Will Parks kind of hurt. Mm-hmm. But I really didn't see anyone too major, maybe besides McGovern and Harris, that were real impact guys that hurt you. In addition, you guys did a great job, I thought. AJ Bouye coming over from the Jaguars, cornerback. Jarrell Casey, D lineman, coming over in a trade with the Titans. Graham Glasgow is the big guy, offensive guard. Massive deal, 4-year deal for him. Melvin Gordon comes over after a year of sitting out. I thought you guys did pretty well. What did you feel like in your free agency heading into the draft? Did you feel good about it?
Yeah, all in all, Denver is a city of hope right now. Surrounding around the Broncos. We've had, post Peyton Manning 2015-16 era, after the Super Bowl run, Denver's been in a bit of, a dark age. I've gotten to the point of not 100% being the biggest fan of John Elway because we've had a worser quarterback carousel than Cleveland, bringing in a number of quarterbacks that just did not work. And, the Mile High City was where quarterbacks' careers came to end. Joe Flacco was basically a retirement home for him. But, that was arguably one of the biggest reasons how Elway sold Peyton Manning to come to Denver was, ending his career on top, similar to Elway himself. But yeah, free agency, obviously took a hit with Chris Harris Jr., one of the biggest and best players for the position of our franchise. And, as an undrafted free agent, total diamond in the rough. But
it's endearing to the fans there.
Yeah, that was probably, from what comes to mind, the biggest loss. Just the heart of the city and Chris Harris. And
yeah,
it's always tough to see anybody on your team go to a division rival.
Yeah, rival there. Yeah, that's not fun.
But, best off to his career, and, hope he's getting paid for it. So he earned it. We salute him. I noticed on free agency, we brought on a handful of Detroit Lions. I think our backup quarterback now, Jeff Driscoll, is a former Lion.
Yep.
Glasgow, as you said, was a Lion. And I think there might be another one. Just running down the list, I was a little bit taken back because, I don't know, it's not, taking players from, former Super Bowl team or anything. The Lions are always just kind of in the middle of the pack, in my opinion.
Hey, listen, Nick, I'm a Jets fan, and there's even good players on bad teams. I'm living proof of watching a lot of bad teams with good players.
You're not wrong, man. Yeah, I'm always tempted to see if you guys are interested in trading Jamal Adams.
No, stop that. So with that obscene notion, we're going to move on. So I take it that you were overall pleased with the draft, not the draft, with free agency heading into the draft. So now we're going to touch on the draft because the big move was Flacco was on his way out. I don't consider Flacco a big loss because you guys were kind of in limbo with him anyway, and the Drew Lock era has begun. And with that, he's going to need some help. And that's one thing I think you guys addressed with the draft. So I want to talk about the guys in the first 3 rounds first, but you guys had 5 picks in the first 3 rounds. And why I want to talk about that first is because I always feel that the guys in the first 3 rounds are the guys that are almost guaranteed to make the team, unless they really flop in training camp and rookie camp.
Mm-hmm.
They're on the team. So let's talk first. Number 15, you had to be surprised. Jerry Jeudy fell to you at wide receiver from Bama. Second round, you guys picked up KJ Hamler, another wide receiver from Penn State. In the third round, your 3 picks were Michael Ajami, I butcher his name every time.
Yeah, right.
Cornerback from Iowa. Lloyd Cushenberry, center from LSU, and McTelvin Agim, D lineman from Arkansas. Now, from what I see here, I feel like Cushenberry may be able to step in and fill McGovern's spot. But tell me how you feel that when Jeudy fell to you, how happy were you?
Yeah, I mean, basically the moral of the story on the Denver Broncos draft is they're given the keys to the kingdom to Drew Lock, and everything was surrounded to support that. Obviously we've got Kansas City in our division, so we haven't won the division for the last 3 to 4 years, and they're basically one of the strongest offenses in the league, if not the strongest. So the first 3 rounds, especially going back-to-back wide receiver in the first and second, is really telling me, and I respect both moves. A little bit surprised at a double wide receiver, but I still respect it. It's we're trying to fight fire with fire going up against Kansas City and their offensive speed and power. So with that, super excited with all of our draft picks who we brought up. The fourth round we brought in Drew Lock's number 1 target from Missouri. I'm not even going to try and say his.
I'm going to try it. And we'll do a rundown here real quick because I want to talk about the day 3 guys. Albert Akwugbunam, tight end Missouri. And then you guys brought in Justin Strnad, linebacker, Wake Forest. I think, Elway just had fun with these names. Natani Moody, guard from Fresno State. Tyree Cleveland, wide receiver, Florida. And then Derek Tuzka, Jesus Christmas, Elway, North Dakota State linebacker. Now, you mentioned the tight end. So I think he has a really good chance of making the team just because a safety blanket for Drew Lock. So we're going to take him out the picture. The 4 other guys that I mentioned, do you know anything about any of them, and which one stands out to you as a guy that has the best chance to make the team? And if you don't know, it's okay, because I don't know about. I love football. There's some late guys that I'm like, I have no idea who the hell that is.
Don't 100% know. I kind of choose on my football more to float towards the NFL Sundays as opposed to the college Saturdays.
Yeah.
But if I had to say anybody, it might actually be the edge rusher in the 7th round, Derek Tuzka from North Dakota State. Having lost Derek Wolfe to Baltimore in free agency, that could be a potential opening. He might, transition to, middle linebacker or something. But, that could be kind of just talking out of the wind, a diamond in the rough, which is what we're hoping for.
Hey, that's all you can hope for. And that's I like the bold option there.
Yeah, almost Mr. Irrelevant.
Almost. Yeah, 1 spot away, actually.
For real. Yeah, is it 255 or 256?
255, and that was the Giants pick. So they got the Mr. Irrelevant this year.
That's awesome. So, you get a trophy for that.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And if you make a team, that's even better. But most of them 100%. Don't. So we're going to jump away from the draft now. We're going to go into the schedule. Aside from your divisional games, your Chiefs, your Raiders, your Chargers, those are always super important. Let's run through the games that aren't in the division. At home, you see the Bills, Dolphins, Saints, Bucks, and Titans. And away, you play the Patriots, Jets, Falcons, Panthers, Steelers. Out of those teams I mentioned, which game are you most interested in watching and why?
Games that I'm most interested in watching would probably be one. I think that Tennessee is a complete fluke based off of last year, and we shut them out last year, so no comment on that. The top 3, looking at the schedule, would be New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and Buffalo.
Of course, New Orleans. Of course, Tampa Bay. Everyone's saying Tampa Bay.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm surprised we even have them this year. It looks like we might have the NFC South. But Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady, obviously a thriller just to see him in another jersey away from New England, but then that Rob Gronkowski reunion of last week, you can't not be interested in that game looking at the schedule.
Definitely, definitely. Now, overall outlook of the season. Are you fighting for a wild card? Is this a true transition year? What are you looking for as a Broncos fan? What do you think is going to happen?
Oh man, I don't know if it's going to be a transition year, which is optimistic. It could be, not to say that we were as unfortunate as the Niners 2 years ago, going from zero to almost 100% heroes, reaching the Super Bowl after, what was it, a 4-12 season in 2018.
Yep.
But I think we're going to be holding our own. Denver, obviously Drew Lock's late season run ended with a 4-1 record, and he's got that swagger and confidence that you're looking for in the quarterback position. That, I mean, it's almost an arrogance, not 100%, but it can come off as just the cockiness. I love it. I personally am a big fan of it. I tried to have it as an athlete, but
exactly,
with preparation comes confidence. And when you reach the game day or the big stage, if you've put in that work, then sports are fun, man.
Hell yeah. So with that, putting you on the spot right now, what is your record next year?
10-6 or 11-5, and we're taking a wild card spot.
I like it. I like the boldness. With that, that's going to close out this series, this part of the series. Broncos, Nick Vandermolen. Nick, thank you so much for coming on, my man.
Serious, man. Great catching up with you, Alex. Thanks for the opportunity, and hope to speak with you soon.
All right, have a good one, man.
Bye, buddy.
So, continuing with our NFL Divisional fan series, we have the Los Angeles Chargers up next. And the representative fan that I have from the Los Angeles Chargers is funny story. He's a guy that actually gave me my start in sports media per se. He is the founder, owner of the All Out Sports Network. Find it at AOSN.com. Alex Zatarin, what's going on, buddy?
Well, it's more about just trying to stay out of trouble. We're all home, but when you're married, you still find ways.
Absolutely. That is really the main goal. So quickly, you were a Chargers fan for how long? When did you start following the Chargers? And you could kind of mention your mini divorce if you want to.
Yeah. So of course, like my family's from San Diego. I was born right across the border in Tijuana. I mean, that's all like a big region that kind of goes in all together. And, I grew up a Chargers fan, and I really started following, when LT first came out from TCU, and then really got into it when they drafted Phillip Rivers. And so I was a pretty diehard, and until, they went ahead and moved to Los Angeles. It's not too far of a drive, but it's a totally different market. And that's one thing that a lot of current Chargers fans don't totally understand, but I mean, it is what it is. And of course, now that Phillip Rivers and Antonio Gates are no longer with the team, it kind of makes it a little bit easier to not pay attention to them. But here we are, I'm still keeping up with everything that they've done with the draft, and I'm obviously going to be following Rivers over to the Indianapolis Colts just to see how he does, because, I love the guy. How can you hate a guy that's so fiery and knows how to trash talk the way he does?
Yeah, he's an interesting character with the way he trash talks. But overall, you were definitely there for the heyday, maybe the second heyday of the Chargers, because they had a good one when they went to the Super Bowl. And then now there was definitely teams there that should have been Super Bowl teams. And we'll put it that way. They should have been. But we're going to talk about free agency this year. I know the draft just happened, but we're going to kind of put the draft away and just only touch on free agency. The losses, you mentioned Phillip Rivers leaving, going to the Colts. Melvin Gordon left, but he really wasn't there last year, so he's kind of not a loss. Travis Benjamin was a tool guy, not major. Russell Okung was pretty big, but he was a part of a trade. When I look at this list, there's losses there, but there isn't back-breaking losses. Now, you turn it around with the additions. Brian Bulaga, talented offensive tackle, agreeing to a 3-year deal. They pay Austin Eckler. which well-deserved. Chris Harris comes over from the Broncos in division. Hunter Henry, they place the franchise tag, hold him there. Linval Joseph, they bring him in. They got a lot of pieces in. Just free agency, how do you think LA did? I know it might hurt for me to say LA. So how did you think the Chargers did?
I think they did a very good job in retooling what they've needed on the offensive front. And just to touch on the draft real quick, one of the biggest things that they did need was offensive line help, which they really didn't go for in this year's draft. But adding Bulaga in that trade, he was with the Packers in 2010.
Yep. And
just being added to this team adds a lot of experience and something that I think Tyrod Taylor, that's assuming that he's going to be the starter and giving, the Justin Herbert some time to go ahead and acclimate to the NFL. Giving Tyrod Taylor that time and that protection is going to be big. And especially for the run game, you're re-signing Austin Eckler, who had a very, very good season in the absence of Melvin Gordon those first few weeks and proved to be a reliable back and a good pass-catching back. Of course, Tyrod Taylor's a bit of a mobile quarterback. He's elusive. So that gives the Chargers a little bit of a different dynamic than what we've seen in, a few decades. Because, you had Drew Brees to start off in the 2000s, and then you move over to Phillip Rivers, who, if you've seen him run, it's more of a trot than anything.
He gallops. We'll call it a gallop.
Right. Yeah, that's probably the best way to say it,
So yeah, you mentioned the trade. Trey Turner was the one that they traded for with
right.
Russell Okung, and that's another reliable starter that they put on there. Now you mentioned the draft. We're going to jump into the draft. Obviously, 6th pick of the whole draft, Justin Herbert comes in, and then you also have Kenneth Murray in the first round, linebacker out of Oklahoma, who I think is as good of a linebacker as anybody in the draft. Just talk about those two, because the rest of the guys were day 3 guys, and the way I kind of feel about the draft is your day 3 guys are kind of your kickers and scratchers to make the team. So talk about the first 2 guys, Justin Herbert, Kenneth Murray. How did you feel about those 2 picks?
Well, Herbert, I know a lot of Chargers fans were hoping, for somebody like Tua to go ahead and drop to them. But if you followed the draft well enough and checked out the news, you knew he was going to go to Miami. There was no way, no how, knowing that Joe Burrow was going to Cincinnati. And with the teams in front, you had Detroit, you had Washington, and those teams aren't really in that urgency of finding a quarterback, especially with Washington needing or having Dwayne Haskins. You're looking at Matthew Stafford up in Detroit, so they're probably not going to look for a replacement anytime soon, if we're going to be really honest. But when you look at Justin Herbert, there's a lot of things that you can look forward to with him. Has a great size. He has a good arm. The biggest thing that he really lacks is, some of his urgency, and also one of the big hits on him was not being a commanding leader. Like a lot of scouts are saying that he leads by example rather than commanding, having that commanding presence. And he's also had a little bit of trouble with throws, just going into the secondary. They do find linebackers. They do get deflected. So he's really going to have to look at his trajectory when throwing.
Yep.
And that's a big thing too for adding the offensive linemen that they have. If he were to come out and start at any point this season, having that protection is awesome, but he's really going to have to, again, work on that trajectory and be patient. It's a much different ball game than what he's seen in the Pac-12. So his ball placement definitely needs to be better if he's going to succeed with this team. And then when you look at Kenneth Murray, very good speed. He's willing to take chances, which can also be a little bit of a downfall for him as well. When you take risks, that's why they're risks. They can pay off, but they can be very detrimental to the defense. So he needs to learn how to flow a little bit better. And I do think that both picks are solid. And like you said, once you start getting into day 2, you start looking at guys that are going to be scratching for a spot rather than, starting off the bat. And that's what you really want to see with a guy like Kenneth Murray, because you're going to expect him to play a little bit more than, Justin Herbert, considering that you have Tyrod Taylor there as your starting quarterback for one more year.
Yeah, kind of quarterback's the only position where if you do have that guy in front of you, you're expected to kind of sit and learn, where every other position is if you're drafted that high, you need to play. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the day 3 guys. They had, chalk picks in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. They went Joshua Kelly, running back of UCLA, in the 4th round. Joe Reed, wide receiver, Virginia, in the 5th, 6th round. Alohi Gilman, safety from Notre Dame. He has a great first name. And 7th round, KJ Hill, wide receiver, Ohio State. Out of those 4 guys, who do you see? Have you done any work on any of them? Who do you see making the team?
Well, I mean, look, what I really want to do here is focus a lot on how does a guy like KJ Hill drop all the way to the 7th round? I mean, when you look at his talent,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird because you're looking at your all-time receptions leader for Ohio State, which in itself is a pretty good situation to be in if you're a wide receiver.
Maybe overshadowed by Fields and Dobbins. That's really the only way I can see it.
Right. So of course, his production wasn't tops for Ohio State, but his touchdowns, I think he ended up with 10 touchdowns last season. And for a guy that got 600 to 700 yards receiving, to have 10 touchdowns is pretty darn good. But of course, when you're looking at college football, it's not unusual to see 5, 6 passing touchdowns in one game. Yep. That's just how it kind of works. Mm-hmm. But for a guy like KJ Hill to be that far down is a little bit surprising. And that could be a guy that you could really watch out for the Chargers, because, you're looking at a Chargers team that has always faced injuries. And that includes your wide receiver core. Keenan Allen has had injuries in the past. Travis Benjamin recently had an injury this past season.
Yep.
And he missed several weeks as well, which has led obviously to him being elsewhere now. So the problem with KJ Hill, though, is that he does have speed issues. So his route speed isn't all that great. He seems to have only one. It's he only has one gear. You want to go ahead and find that extra gear if you're a wide receiver like him. That's probably why, he had that drop, because if he has one speed, it's kind of apparent of what he's going to do. You know what kind of defense you could play against a wide receiver like that, because it's just, again, one gear. That's the one guy I would really look at if I'm the Chargers. And again, consider the injuries in the past. Wide receivers go down. It happens. So I would really consider keeping him around.
There's another guy that's easy to compare to him. I don't know in terms of talent, because I didn't watch enough KJ Hill, but there was another guy that came out of Ohio State that was knocked for having one gear and not being super fast. Chris Carter. And let's talk about that guy's career, because Chris Carter was not the fastest guy on the field ever, but pristine route runner, hands of stickum. So not saying KJ Hill is anywhere near Chris Carter, but the whole entire one gear thing could definitely be overcome if his routes are pristine and he catches everything. We're going to jump into the schedule now. Aside from the conference, the divisional games, because the divisional games, Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos, always important, probably the biggest 6 games of the year. But I want you to point out one game to me that is big that you would be interested in watching between their non-divisional games. I'm going to run through them real quick. At home, Patriots, Jets, Falcons, Panthers, Jaguars. Away, Bills, Dolphins, Saints, Bucks, Bengals. What game jumps out at you that you definitely would sit down and watch?
I would say the Saints for sure, because, they're playing in New Orleans. That's a very difficult place to beat Drew Brees and company. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at the team, that should be maybe a game later in the season. If that's a game that's much further out, then you're looking at possibly a game that does decide whether the Chargers make the playoffs or not. And you have to beat teams like the New Orleans Saints if you want to make the playoffs. You have to beat them, or at least show that you're competitive with them. And again, it's all about proving yourself. And this team under Anthony Lynn really has to prove themselves. Lynn has to prove himself. There's a trend with Chargers coaches. Since Marty Schottenheimer, you're looking at coaches that do well their first 2 years, and then there's a sudden drop-off. Yep. And you're looking at that with Norv Turner. Norv Turner had the same issue. Mike McCoy. Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn, very good. That first season, a great bounce-back season. They just missed the playoffs. The second season, of course, a playoff appearance. And now you go 2019, a loaded roster of players, but you end up at 5-11. And you can't just blame, Phillip Rivers for any mistakes he did. It's a team effort, you guys. Like, if you're going to win a game, you have to be in that situation where you're going to go ahead and take a strong hold of it. So for the Chargers, playing at a place like New Orleans is going to be a real test to see what they can do. And of course, the Chargers are going to struggle because, they're going to have a brand new stadium and all, but we've seen in the last few years that they're not packing it with their own fans. And it's going to be a rough ride this season. And especially with, you don't have your heart of that team anymore in Phillip Rivers. It's a much different complexion. You have to look at teams like New Orleans or the other teams that you're going to be playing from the NFC South in Tampa Bay, the Carolina Panthers, the Atlanta Falcons. They're not going to be the easiest of teams. Even the Panthers themselves, who have been retooling, they lost Luke Kuechly and they don't have Cam Newton anymore, but it's not like Teddy Bridgewater's some slouch. It's going to be.
And if PJ Walker shows out, he could really be a problem in the NFL and make them a real legitimate team.
Oh, absolutely. But if you look at this Chargers roster, it is stacked. There are obviously going to be questions at the quarterback position, but the secondary is solid, especially with the addition of Chris Harris. You're looking at an offense that has a retooled offensive line. Austin Eckler is going to be very reliable. The wide receiving core
could be defensive player of the year any year if he's healthy.
Oh yeah. If he's healthy. That's always the problem with the Chargers is those big ifs.
Yep.
And obviously the cream of the crop is going to be Kansas City in the AFC West and, inarguably in the AFC. But if you look at the Chargers on paper, you're looking at a team that should have well exceeded expectations last season. Rather than being 5-11, that's at least a 9-7 team. That's a playoff team on paper.
Yep.
And they're a playoff team again this coming season. But again, for them, it just seems like everything needs to fall perfectly in their direction. And with the 7th seed now available in the playoffs, it's much more attainable. They really have to win those games. Again, if you're going into a place like New Orleans, it's hostile territory. But if you go into a game like that and make it competitive and win, you're probably in a very good position this season.
Definitely. So I'm going to put you on the spot right now. What is the Chargers record next year?
I could see them at, if they have decent quarterback play, I can see them at 9-7 and just inside of the playoff picture.
All right. I like it. Alex, thank you so much for joining the show.
No, thank you. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Absolutely. Again, that was Alex Zatarin. He is the founder, owner of All Out Sports Network. Go visit them at aosn.com. Alex, thanks again, buddy.
Thank you.
Continuing right along with our NFL Divisional Fan Series for the AFC West, we have the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, and representing the Chiefs with me right now as the fan is the father of a familiar voice, main contributor on the Sports Opinions podcast, Joe Santos. What's going on, Joe?
How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing really, really well. So, Joe, I got to ask you, I've been asking everybody, what is your 9-to-5 profession?
9 to 5. My profession is a district sales manager for an Ellis Coffee Company. And basically, it's a coffee company that's family-owned out of Philadelphia. It's been around since 1854. The coffee has been. It's a third-generation company. And basically, I run the New Jersey division for them to sell coffee to restaurants, hotels, and down the street mom-and-pop businesses.
So all you told me is you're one of the most important human beings around for every single adult's morning that has to pound a cup of coffee to make sure that we just get up on time.
Yes, I get that a lot. When they see me, they're very happy.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about your fandom real quick. Chiefs fan for, I'm assuming, most of your life, if not your whole life. What got you started on the Chiefs bandwagon? What made you become a major Chiefs fan? And kind of give me your first memory of being a Chiefs fan.
So that was probably back in 69, 68. I came with my family from Portugal to this country, and I didn't know anything about football. I was around 8 years old at the time, and, made friends. The kids used to play football. And I started kind of getting into the game and playing. I really didn't even know any of the teams at all, but they used to play. We used to play football outside, just on the grass and stuff like that. And I, got into the game. And the year the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, a couple of friends of mine that I played with, they had they had Chief hats and Chief stuff on, and this red hat. I remember a wool red hat, Chief hat that this kid had, and I liked it, So basically, that's how that team became my team, and that was that Super Bowl year, and I've been a Chief fan ever since.
It really is always funny, the different ways that we all kind of gravitate to our fandom and, our first memories of becoming a fan. And that's a really cool story because it's, you hear a lot of my father liked this team, or, with my generation, it's the video game I played, I like this team. And it's just cool that a piece of apparel that one of your friends was wearing is what drew you to the team. That's a really, really cool story. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to talk first about the free agency from this past season. We're going to put away the draft for a minute. That just happened, but I just want to get your opinions on free agency itself. So we're going to start off with the losses. Now, there is a list of losses that you guys had in free agency, but when I look at it, it's not the most effective to what you guys did as an offense. You lost some pieces. LaShawn McCoy and Spencer Ware were two good backups, but not necessarily big time going to hurt you. Stefan Wisniewski, offensive guard, kind of a hit, but, you can make up for that. Manuel Agba on the defensive end, he's good player, goes over to the Dolphins. Darren Lee and Reggie Ragland aren't great losses. Kendall Fuller is really your biggest loss there at corner. But then you turn around and in free agency, you add Antonio Hamilton for a 1-year deal. It's a cornerback. You place a tender on Chris Jones to keep him there. You re-signed DeMarcus Robinson. A lot of the things that you guys did, bringing back Brashard Breeland at corner, was to bring back the important pieces and kind of let go some of the pieces that weren't as important. How did you feel overall about free agency when you were heading into the draft?
I would say Chris Jones was our biggest thing there, tagging him. I mean, we had to keep him, and hopefully they'll, end up signing him. As far as running, the running back, Williams and then Breeland, of course, these are key players for our team, and they have been. So some of the losses, like you said, yes, McCoy and Ware, but running backs, you could find, and of course in the draft we did find one when we get there to that part. But it's just trying to keep the core of the players that we gave us the chance to win the Super Bowl, and I think overall we did a good job in that. Re-signing almost all of our players and keeping them. So overall, I think we did a very good job. I think we're right there, from last year going into this season coming up.
Definitely. You guys are in a very good position that I think every team tries to get to, where as long as you have your superstar quarterback intact, then you guys have a very good chance of going back to the Super Bowl every single year. Patrick Mahomes is one of those guys that, as long as he's healthy, the Chiefs will go as far as him. Now, we're going to jump right into the draft. You mentioned earlier, you alluded to your first-round draft pick, 32nd pick overall, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back from LSU. Your son, Matt, was very high on Edwards-Helaire and was very happy for you, especially when the Chiefs picked him, he has the chance to potentially take over Damian Williams in time. Maybe not right away, but they're definitely going to split time next year. How did you feel about that pick?
At first, when you see, first round, you're taking a running back, you kind of say, you might want to maybe you'd shore up your offensive line a little better and also, your defensive line. But the kind of team we have we're all, the offense is so explosive. You kind of that is your strength. So it kind of makes sense when you look at it to make that even better. And I think with Clyde, I think that gives us another threat. This kid here, I think, could be like a Sproles type of guy. And when we had the incident with Kareem Hunt,
yep.
We lost a little bit. It didn't show, but, with Kareem Hunt, I think if he was there, and rightly so, he had to go. I mean, but now picking up Clyde is, just giving us another weapon like Kareem Hunt. Like I said, like Sproles, this kid could be like that coming out of the backfield. He's a great catcher of the ball. You could do a lot of versatile, different things with him. So I'm happy that we did get him in the first round, and I think he's going to be a great asset to our offense even more,
Yeah, I definitely know he's a happy guy getting into that type of a good situation. I'm going to jump in with your second and third round picks. Your second round pick, Willie Gay Jr., linebacker from Mississippi State. And then third round pick, Lucas Niang, offensive tackle from TCU. So they address the offensive line there. And then you also get a linebacker from Mississippi State playing in the SEC. So the linebackers in the SEC have to be quick. So that just adds a little bit of speed to your defense. You get some big body with the offensive tackle. Are you happy with the way that they approach the first three rounds? Because I always say, and I've said on every one of these segments, those first 3 round guys are the guys that all the fans need to get to know because they're on your football team. They're going to get a good chance to be on the everyday roster. Did you think they did a good job the first 3 rounds?
Yes, I think they did. I think the linebacker, the Chiefs, and especially me being a Chief fan from way back, I mean, we've had our share of linebackers. It's a position that, the Chiefs always had, key players. And, so I think Willie Gay is going to be just a tremendous asset to our defense there. He's going to be he's quick, like you said. He could cover. I think that's going to help our defense a lot, which our defense improved last year every game, later and later in the year, which was really I think the backbone at the end there for us to win it all.
Yeah, you mentioned that, there's a good lineage of linebackers for the, Kansas City Chiefs, and he just enters right into that. Now, quickly, the back end guys, round 4 or 5, you didn't have a 6th round pick, but round 7. L'Jarius Sneed in the 4th round, safety from Louisiana Tech. Mike Dana, defensive end from Michigan in the 5th round. And Thacarius Keys, cornerback from Tulane in the 7th round. They went all defense there. And you talked about the improvement on defense. Is this kind of their way of saying our offense is good to go? We have Patty. We're doing our thing. Let's get some more bodies on the defense, maybe find some more impact players, and let's shore this up and let's get back to the promised land type of deal?
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. I think this is the depth that we need on defense. We needed safeties. You can never have enough cover guys,
Yep.
And it's a long season, and we've had a lot of bad injuries in our secondary. This is very good picks here for in the defensive side of the ball to ensure we have some depth on the line and in corner and in safety. And I'm sure the safety in the corner, if you need to use them, I guess mix it up or whatever, switch them around. I'm sure, that could be done with these young guys. And, will they see action right away? Probably not. But in a defensive scheme that we have, I think these will be versatile players, in years to come for us, hopefully.
And worst comes to worst with guys like that, you might just got some great special teamers, and that's
right.
Very underrated, having a very good special teamer. So we're going to jump into the schedule real quick. I'm kind of ignoring the divisional games on a lot of these because I'm just acknowledging that the 6 games in your division are always the most important games. Those are games that you have to win, that you always focus on, especially as a fan. Those are your rivals. But I want to run down the other games. So at home, you guys play the Patriots, Jets, Falcons, Panthers, and Texans. And away, you see the Bills, Dolphins, Saints, Buccaneers, and Ravens. Out of those other games, which one kind of pops out at you that you're kind of checking off and you're really looking forward to watching?
I would have to say Baltimore. I would say the Ravens. And the reason why is it's just the way the two teams are built. The Ravens with their explosive offense, us with our explosive offense. Just the two coaches, they're very similar. The way they game plan and put emphasis on their quarterback as their key player to, I can't say to win the game because I don't know if you're going to win or lose, but to actually, put the, the pedal to the metal, on the offensive side. And the defense, Ravens got a good defense. The Chiefs are, really getting better and they're on a rise in their defense. So I think that's the game. That could be the game that when the playoffs come, and if those two teams are in it, which I would think they would be probably a rematch.
Definitely. I'm definitely seeing that as a lot of people circling that as game of the year. And it's going to be prime time on Thursday, Sunday, or Monday night. So looking forward to that one as well, just as a football fan. Now, overall for you as a fan, are you expecting with the team right now and what you have, are you expecting kind of repeat or bust? Will you kind of not accept anything less? Like, what's your outlook right now for the year?
Well, my outlook is that the way we come, the way we're not structured, but the way our team is and the players that we have, we didn't lose much from last year, from the Super Bowl year. So, to me, it's got to be somewhere around 13-3. Same type of year. I should say even a little better because we'll have Mahomes hopefully for the full year. You never know, of course, injuries, but if we have him for the healthy and our key players healthy I would say 13-3. I don't think that's not crazy.
So is that your official prediction right now, the low ball prediction, 13-3?
I would say yes.
Perfect. So you took off the emphasis of me putting you on the spot completely there by just throwing it at me. Mm-hmm. So that kind of wraps it up, Joe. I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thank you very much. It was my pleasure, Alex, and good luck with your show.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. So again, he's Joe Santos, our Kansas City Chiefs representative fan. And I hope everyone enjoyed that. Joe, again, I really appreciate you coming on. Everybody, have a good one. And closing out the AFC West, with me right now is the representative for the newly moved Las Vegas Raiders. I give him credit for sticking with them. Dylan McCarthy, what's going on, buddy?
Hello, how you doing, man?
Good. Appreciate you coming on now. Dylan, you are a student in your everyday life, right?
Yeah.
And being a student, fortunately, gives you probably a good amount of free time. So you're able to do something really cool on Instagram. You run the Big League Fantasy Instagram. What do you do there? Give me a quick synopsis.
So it started up as like a more of a passion project, helped me learn Photoshop and other things like that. But then I started really getting to the overall goal is to just give people kind of insight on fantasy football, tell them like my predictions, my analysis, because again, I love fantasy football a lot. So I've always seen myself good at it. So I'm like, hey, let me try doing this real quick. And it started getting a little following, and I've been having a great time with it.
So Raiders fandom, when did it start? What's your earliest memory of being a Raiders fan?
Earliest was, so my dad is a big Raiders fan. I was born in California, actually, and now I live in New York. But my dad was a season ticket holder to the Raiders. And one of the earliest memories, my dad's name is Rich, and he would go to watch the Raider games. Like he uses season tickets to go watch them. And I would watch the games on TV and see Rich Gannon and think it's my dad playing. I don't actually remember this when I was like 4 years old or whatever it was, but my mom would tell me these stories. It was pretty funny.
That's awesome. So you could let your dad know, and you might know, not too long ago on the regular show, I had on Wayne the Violator Mabry, which I think a lot of Raider fans know as the original guy that started the black hole with the shoulder pads and everything. So he was on the show not too long ago if you want to go check that out. That's
awesome.
Little bit of fun trivia. We're going to jump right in because they are the newly reminted Las Vegas Raiders, and with that, brand new offseason happened. So we're going to start off talking about free agency. I know the draft just happened. We're going to pretend that doesn't exist for this segment. I just want to get your opinion on the actual free agency. So the guys that you lost, your backup Mike Glennon is gone. Dwayne Harris, the wide receiver, Vontaze Burfict is gone. Don't know if you're going to miss the penalties or anything.
Yeah,
Tahir Whitehead, who was a pretty big integral part to the linebacking core, goes to the Panthers. Safety Carl Joseph goes to the Browns. Richie Incognito's gone. So those are your losses. You guys brought in Nelson Aguilar, which for all of his faults or whatever, I make fun of him in the Eagles fandom, he had some pretty big catches there, so he's an addition. Malik Collins comes over defensive tackle. Jeff Heath, safety. Eric Cush. Nick Kwiatkowski, linebacker, and Corey Littleton, I think, is your big pickup. How did you feel? Oh, and we can't forget Jason Witten coming over on a one-year deal.
Yep.
How do you think the Raiders did for free agency? Were you happy, pleased, a little frustrated going into the draft? What were your feelings on it?
Honestly, I was pretty pleased with it. I think the duo of linebackers we got out of Collins and Kwiatkowski was incredible, just because that was kind of a weak point in our team right now.
And Littleton is a big boost, too.
Yes, definitely. And then losing Glennon wasn't the biggest deal. Having Mariota as a backup for Carr is nice, just because I'm a Carr believer, but I know at times the Raiders aren't. So if they were to ever make a switch to a backup, Mariota's one of the better backups in the league, which in my opinion, which I'm definitely fine with.
So do you think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Carr, and the moment he slips up, is the fandom going to kind of turn on him to see what Mariota can do?
I definitely think so. Now that yeah, it does. But yeah, we got Aguilar. I know he's a pretty memey player. People like to talk about his drops, but he's had some pretty killer games. So yeah. I'm a big fan of him joining the team. And yeah, I think I just remember seeing the draft, and I feel like usually the Raiders will pick player, just growing up as a Raider fan, they've always made some questionable moves, in my opinion, in free agency. And I'm pretty pleased because they realized that the defense was a big problem on our team and really decided to double down on it.
Yeah, so we're going to jump right into the draft right now. And normally when I went over these last few segments with some of the other people, I kind of talked about, the players that were going to make the team versus the back-end players on the day 3 that were going to kind of be kicking and scratching. Now, the Raiders had a very different approach.
Yeah.
You had 7 picks, but all 7 picks were within the first 4 rounds. So I'm going to go over the first 2-day guys, which are kind of the guys that are almost guaranteed to make the team or have a really good chance. And then we'll talk about the day 3, the 2-day guys, the guys on the day 3 guys. Sorry, stumbling over here.
Yeah, you got it.
So your first pick, Henry Ruggs, wide receiver out of Alabama, number 12. Then in the first round, you guys go cornerback with Damon Arnett, Ohio State. Second round happens, no pick. Third round comes, 3 picks in the third round, one of them back-to-back. You get Lynn Bowden Jr., wide receiver from Kentucky, then go back to the well and get another wide receiver, Brian Edwards of South Carolina. Finish out that round getting Tanner Muse, a linebacker from Clemson. You went wide receiver crazy. How did you feel seeing Lynn Bowden, Brian Edwards going back-to-back, getting Henry Ruggs early? What did you feel about those first 5 picks?
All right, so I'm just gonna say real quick, Lynn Bowden is one of my favorite players in college. I thought he was incredibly fun to watch, so I'm
He's
super excited about
fantastic.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. Even though I know a lot of people don't like the pick, I just think it's a super fun pick. Fans are gonna love him. Henry Ruggs at the beginning, I was pretty upset with initially. I loved CeeDee Lamb. I thought overall him and Judy were better receivers. But then the more when I thought about it, Henry Ruggs is going to help us stretch the field much better just because of his speed, his deep ball presence. And players like Darren Waller, who already was our best receiving player on our team.
Yep.
Is like Waller and Renfro are going to just have more space to do things in like middle field, kind of 10-yard radius plays. So I saw Gruden super excited when he made this pick. And now I'm starting to really get it. So I like that pick.
Did it make you more comfortable seeing Bowden and Edwards also jump into the fray where, okay, if Ruggs does fail, for whatever reason, Ruggs is a bust, you might still get a really productive guy out of one of those three?
Yes. I think Edwards is actually an incredible pick for me. I think as a receiver, he's really, really good. And this is what I was getting back to with Carr being on the chopping block here. I think they're giving him so much weapons. They're saying, all right, you have to perform this year. And if you don't, sorry, man.
Yeah, I think if anyone perform with the weapons he has right now, they kind of don't deserve to be there. Now, fun fact with Lynn Bowden, when I saw him picked, I was kind of like you. Some people were downing it. I thought it was a great pick for the one reason I'm a Jets fan. So I experienced Brad Smith, who is a very similar type of player to Lynn Bowden. And a little bit of a toot my own horn, I actually tweeted that out and tagged Brad Smith, and he liked my tweet. So fanboying a little bit there. So, but you guys, I think, get a great guy there. Now, we're going to jump to the day 3 picks, which you guys got out of the way early. You had 2 fourth-round picks to round out your draft. John Simpson on the O-line, Amik Robertson, cornerback from Louisiana Tech. Out of those 2 names, do you know anything about those guys, research, and which one of those 2 do you think has the best chance to make the team, if not both of them?
I definitely think it's Robertson from Louisiana Tech. I do think both of them are going to be on the team. The Raiders love drafting Clemson players. It's been a thing. I don't really know why.
I mean, Dabo Sweeney era has been really good to Clemson.
It's true. They got Cleveland Farrell last year. He wasn't incredible. I don't know if he was worth the pick that they got him, but he's still been a solid member of our team. And I do think John Simpson is going to be a player that ends up, even if he's not a starter this year, he's going to be a reliable backup. And then I like Amik Robertson. After the draft, I went and researched him some more, and I think they got him for a pretty good value at the 139th, I think it was.
Yeah, 139th pick, yep.
Yeah, he is someone who just ball hawks really well, and I think could, as the Raiders during free agency didn't go too corner crazy. I think they picked up one.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think it was a big-name corner either way. You got Demarius Randall, who's a good corner, but it was only a 1-year, $3.25 million deal, which kind of shows the value of the pickup.
Yeah, exactly. I think they might have also – did they pick up Eli Apple? I'm trying to remember.
I think that deal fell through.
Did it? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I think you're right. Okay. I think they realized that corner needed to be just secondary in general. I loved Carl Joseph.
Carl Joseph's a good player.
Yeah, losing him was rough. So I think with their last pick in the draft, going a corner with high upside was very good. And I definitely think Robertson's going to end up maybe even as a starter this year coming here.
Now, before we jump out of the draft, you did pick Damon Arnett, cornerback from Ohio State, in the first round, number 19. I feel like Big Ten corners kind of have a real hit or miss reputation because, SEC corners and other conferences, I think, do a little better with speed, where Big Ten's a little more rough and tumble. Do you like that pick, or do you think that Robertson has more upside than what Arnett brings?
So throughout college, I do think Arnett was the better player, but again, I do think I guess I like Robertson a lot. And the Arnett pick might have been my least favorite pick of their draft. I just thought
they reached a little there.
Yeah, definitely. I just thought there were better corners available. Arnett was my CB6, I think, going into the draft.
Okay.
So he was taken as the CB2 or CB3, something like that. And I just definitely think that I think they both have a lot of upside, but I definitely like Robertson the fourth and has a lot. I think he's one of my favorite players in this draft.
All right, last thing before we jump off, putting your fantasy cap on now, your little specialty.
Oh, yes.
The weird wide receivers picked. Who gives the best fantasy value this year?
Definitely Ruggs, just because if you're using your first round pick on a player, you almost have to give them the ball, But the problem with Ruggs is that he's not going to be that possession guy that fantasy likes. Fantasy football, you want them to get receptions because that's consistency throughout games. Ruggs is going to be that boom or bust kind of player, in my opinion, where he'll have one crazy game and then a not-so-great game. So right now, if you're going to pick receiver on the Raiders, I might even say to go Renfro instead of Ruggs right now just because he's going to be reliably catching passes.
Got it. So if it's a PPR league, go Renfro. Non-PPR, Ruggs might be a good flyer.
I would say that, yes.
All right. So jumping out of the draft, going to jump into the schedule, the kind of the season outlook. You'll give your prediction. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of the conference games, because Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, always important. The biggest 6 games of the year are your conference games.
Yes.
But your home schedule out of conference, Bills, Dolphins, Saints, Bucks, Colts, and away, Patriots, Jets, Falcons, Panthers, Browns. Out of those remaining games, which game jumps out at you and why?
Jumps out at me in a way of
interest. Which one are you looking forward to watching out of the games that I mentioned?
Tampa.
Everyone. I think everyone's going to say the Buccaneers now. It has to be.
I'm really excited for that, just to see Brady play against us in a Tampa uniform. And just based on their offensive weapons, I'm not too sure how we fare unless our corner picks really do work out. Because I don't know who on our team will cover both Godwin, Evan, and Gronk at once.
Who knows?
It's gonna be a little rough. But if everything does work out as Gruden was excited for all this, so if Gruden's mind worked out perfectly this draft, I think we have a shot. But I'm really high on Tampa this year and don't see that as a win. But it'll be a fun match to watch.
I think we can have a hell of a shootout that game. Overall, definitely. I think that could be an offensive game. So, your overall outlook for the season, what are you thinking? Are you positive going into the inaugural Vegas year? Are you iffy? What are your overall feelings this year? There's going to be success for the Raiders?
I do think we're not going to be bad. I see us fighting for second in the division with Denver is my prediction.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe like with an 8-8 record. What?
It's a tough division right now.
It is. Denver looks so good now.
It's crazy what a year can do for them.
Yeah, and I love Locke, so I'm worried. But I think our schedule actually is pretty not bad this year. We have the AFC East, which could be much worse to play against.
It could be awful and it could be good. The Patriots could be the worst team, but the Bills and the Jets could be some formidable teams. The Dolphins, you never know with the Dolphins.
Yeah, I'm a little worried of the Dolphins this year too. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to play Tua or whatever, but I think it could be worse as a team because I think the Raiders were top 5 in worst strength of schedules last year, and we ended up not doing too bad, 7-9.
And they have to travel to New York and New England, which is always a tough cross-the-country travel.
And I assume we're playing another Mexico or London game. That's not too bad.
Yeah. But all right, Dylan.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot. What's your record?
One better than last year. Give us an 8-8 record, I think.
8-8. It's always fun. You're my 5th segment I've done. Asking fans to think positively. I know they're sitting there thinking going playoffs 10-6, no doubt. And then they're like, dial it back.
Yeah, I can't see us beating the Chiefs this year. Like, the Chiefs are just a team that we haven't been able to do anything to in recent time. And just with our division getting stronger, I do think Carr's going to play well enough to give him respect, but I don't think the team will just sometimes come together. Like last year, we came together pretty strong and then kind of flopped later on. And I think it's probably going to be a similar situation. All
right. Again, thank you, Dylan McCarthy, for coming on Big League Fantasy. Where can they find you on Instagram? What's your Instagram tag if people want to go find that?
Just at Big League Fantasy, one word on Instagram.
Wonderful. Again, thank you so much for coming on, being our Raiders representative. Have a good one, Dylan.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
That wraps up this section of the NFL Divisional Fan Series, the AFC West. Hope everyone enjoyed that. I'm looking to go south next. We're going to talk some NFC South with 4 more great fans, so be on the lookout for that. And hopefully you enjoyed what you heard this time, everybody. Have a good one.